Hey everyone, Karen the Warped Spinster here. Welcome to my channel and thank you for joining me today. You may be wondering why I have this big old pot here instead of fabric, and it's because I've decided I want to try some fabric versions of Kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of repair using gold. The history and philosophy is really interesting, but for our purposes, it's taking a broken piece of ceramics, putting it back together, and then gilding the lily, using gold to cover up the cracks. So it's making it beautiful in the broken places. Now, traditionally, the repair was done with a lacquer, which is actually toxic when wet, apparently, so I wouldn't call it food safe. And then gold powder was made into a paint to sort of paint and cover over the cracks. Nowadays, there are different techniques, and you use two-part epoxy, etc., which sort of has some relevance to what we're doing, but I'll talk a little bit more about that as we do it. So this pot is one that has been in my family for, I don't know, a long time. And it has had some hard days, so it has some chips out of here. This, I think, was originally an imperfection in the glazing, and then it was cracked down here. And it has been repaired, but you can still see the cracks, of course. It's still waterproof. And I really love this. It reminds me of Ireland, which is probably why my dad's family had it, because they were all from Ireland. But it's just, I don't know, it's perfect colors. So I do want to repair this using more modern Kintsugi. Well, I guess I'm not really repairing it. I am decorating it with using modern Kintsugi techniques. But this just gives you some idea of what we're looking at. So we've got cracks. I mean, this is basically what we do with quilting, right? We take small pieces and put them together and make them beautiful, even more beautiful. You've probably seen some beautiful Kintsugi art or even dinnerware that mimics Kintsugi. And a class that I'm taking on Domestica actually has you buy a couple of ceramic bowls and break them into 3 or 4 pieces, which I sort of chuckled at. Oh yeah, let's break these so we can repair them. But then I thought, well, that's basically what we're doing in quilting, so maybe sit this one out, Karen. So as I was thinking about this morning, there are so many. I kept coming up with new ways that we could do it, and I think I want to try just, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them today, and using various fabrics. So it is Kintsugi inspired. It's not going to, of course, be perfect Kintsugi, but just as a starting point. So I have some of my standard default white, a darker color, this nice aubergine, it's not quite aubergine, whatever. Dark mauve, purple, red purple, and a print, and then a gold colored fabric. I also, of course, have all the standard white, black, invisible, and then I also have a gold thread here. It's not a gold metallic, though I probably have some somewhere, but it will serve our purposes for today. So the first thing that I want to explore, and I'm going to try to do smallish pieces so it doesn't take forever and I can kind of see what I like and what I don't like. I'm actually going to start out with a piece that is not square. In fact, I might even curve this a little more. I have seen some lovely sort of flat bowl Kintsugis that are just gorgeous. I especially love the gold against a dark color, which is why I had this purple fabric. We'll see how it goes. And it can be done on prints as well. Porcelain that has design on it rather than just plain, or even a sort of modeled look. It's done on lots of things. My preference is for the gold on solid. Actually, it's beautiful on white too. It's a very beautiful technique, in my opinion. All right, so the first thing we could do, obviously, is to break this into pieces. Tends to be fairly straight-ish lines. If you think about breaking something, it's going to break kind of along fault lines. So I'm just going to do one piece. Say it's like that. Now, let's talk about a few of the choices here. One would be to have some fabric underneath, and I could have this unfusible web, of course, or not, depending on what I want to do, and then pull these apart and do some stitching along the sides here, either matching the white or matching the purple. You could do gold, which would, of course, be more in keeping with Kintsugi if you wanted to do that, but the gold would be covering this fracture. So I mean, that may be an option as well. You could do a loose stitch. Maybe we'll try doing that. Do a loose stitch and change the width of it. Use gold. Change the width of the stitch. Have it be an open zigzag, so not a satin stitch, but an open zigzag, so you could see this through the gold thread, and then just change if you wanted to vary the width here, you could just change the width of the stitch as you go. So that's one option. And you know what, let's try that, but let's do it with a little shorter stretch of it. So let's say we take this piece. Now my other option would be, instead of pulling this apart, which would change the dimensions, well, it would change the dimensions, but I could also leave these together so this shape is going to remain, and just cut a piece out of it, and then put that on here, and I can line that up so that it fits how it was. Now it's starting to look like a ginkgo leaf. Ooh, that'd be pretty, a ginkgo leaf. And then try doing some stitching there. So I'm going to do that. In this case, I think I'm just going to cut a strip of this purple just to save it, and try some stitching across here. I'll put it on some stabilizer, and then change stitch width as I go here, and have a pretty open stitch. Zigzag, that's what I'm talking about. Did I say that before? A zigzag stitch. I could also, as I'm doing this, just have the entire piece underneath and be building this as I go with just that solid piece under there. So I basically have two layers. One advantage of that is that under this white, it's going to appear all the same. There isn't going to be shadowing in spots where this appears, and a whiter where this has been cut away. So a couple different choices there. But let's start with just this piece, and I'm going to cut a strip of this, put that in between, put it on some stabilizer, and use this with varying width of stitch there. I'm preparing to do this. This is wider than it actually needs to be, but I like having some extra stabilization around. Just wanted to illustrate more what I mean by the shadowing. So since I have purple under only part of this, you can see where the purple ends underneath, which I would not want in a finished piece, but for our exploring purposes, it will be okay. And here is the result. I actually tried a couple different things on here. First of all, first thing to do is to test how wide a stitch your machine can do. This looks it was almost enough, but that's as wide as my machine will do with the foot that I'm using. So this space could have been a little narrower actually for my machine and this particular technique. And then I started decreasing the size as this purple got narrower. My machine does a funky little thing. If it's on a wide stitch and I ask it to narrow, then it has to do an extra stitch in the middle, which is a little funky, and then I got it narrower as I came, and then I started to see what it would look like with the stitch closer together. So I backed it off, I don't know, 3 or 4 dots or so, and then got it wider as I got down here. I kind of like the effect. It's a different sort of look. It's not necessarily the one that I'm looking for, but it's an interesting idea. And as I got down here, I thought, well, let's see what happens if we make it an even tighter stitch. Still not a satin stitch, but a tighter stitch. Still did that funky thing, which I'll have to work on that, see what I can do for that. Pardon me, this little purple fuzz is bugging me. All right, and then narrowed it down again. So that's a possibility, is to not even do this split thing, but just simulate the gold part of the repair, not the original crack, which again is a nice decorative thing, and you could certainly use it in a Kintsugi kind of way, minimalist kind of way. But I really like the idea of actually having this crack in it, a crack of some sort. Oh, and I left the pins in just to show you that I did pin those using some fine pins before I did the stitching, just to make sure it wouldn't shift. So this curve is a little off now because I had to bring this closer together than the cut that I made, because my zigzag stitch was not as wide as I was apparently thinking it was going to be. So there's the effect. You can barely see the purple as it narrows, and then see more when it's wider. So that's an option. I could, of course, have done this with invisible thread. I wouldn't have had to go on both sides or have the stitch cover both sides at once. I could have done it on either side, and then the purple would have shown through more. And I could, of course, have done the reverse, where I had purple on top, white underneath, etc. In fact, let's try doing just the gold on the white as I did down here. Just do the gold on the white. I'll give that a go, and I'll do it on a place that already has stabilizer, just because. And the gold is a nice sort of subtle contrast, if there is such a thing, on the white, and I like it. It's basically just a satin stitch embellishment, which could be fun. I can sort of see that in small pieces that are put together. So there are a couple of options. Now, another one would be to do that same thing, but with a print underneath. And, oh, this must have been backing fabric. So say we want to take this piece and do a repair on here. What if we have a dark piece underneath? Let's try a gold piece underneath, and then we'll do basically the same thing, but I will try to keep the cut a little narrower for the sake of my machine zigzag. All right, in this instance, I have not cut that extra strip out. I just did a single slice, and I'm going to keep it, and I'm going to use gold thread again, so it doesn't have to be really wide, because the gold thread is also going to accent that color. Pardon my gardening fingernails, by the way. And I will again put stabilizer under here, a couple of pins to stabilize it even more, and do a zigzag again. I trimmed up the piece a little bit, trimmed the yellow off the back to minimize that shadowing. And I tried it a couple of different ways. First of all, I did what we did before, where the stitch spans the split, and then about halfway I changed it to a zigzag on both sides of it and change the width. So this side is narrower, this side is wider. I think I like the wider stitch for this, but I think I like this best. I didn't expect to, but I think I did. Now, because these stitches are so open, you would want to use probably, unless you wanted a frayed sort of look, a raveled look, then you would want to put this on fusible, double-sided fusible. There would still be a little bit of raveling, but not much. And if you were making, I guess if you were making this for a quilt that was going to be used, in other words, not a wall hanging or showpiece or something, then you might want the stitches to be a little closer together. But I rather like this lacy, open sort of look. And I was going to cut it smaller, but then I thought, no, I want this gold to tie in with it. So this would be how it would look with a print on top. So a patterned plate or bowl that was broken with some kintsugi. And here is the other piece trimmed up. There's still a bit, I trimmed the purple from the back, though not very well on that side, obviously. But you can still see the shadowing through. Sorry, I tend to use my little finger and it's got that black fingernail. So this is trimmed up a little bit. This looks like a corset to me, doesn't it? Corset style. And then this piece that we just finished. The other option, of course, instead of, this is like a reverse applique. You could also do where you cut the gold piece and put it on top. Almost thinking I want to do it that direction. So I think I'm going to have to trim that to a different angle. But so this wider part then would simulate where the chip has come off, say an edge or in the middle. So it's not a full crack, but a piece of the glaze or whatever has chipped off. So in this case, because this is wide here, I'm going to have to do a zigzag stitch or some stitch along both edges there. So let me do that again. I'll put stabilizer underneath and see how that looks. I wonder how this could interact here. Could come over this. Let's do that just so we have a little demonstration of that too. So we have a narrowish crack coming to a chip in the edge, and a couple cracks coming together, because anyone who has ever broken a dish knows how that goes. So I will do a zigzag on this and come back. And I'm continuing to do this in gold, but of course, if you wanted more contrast, you could do it in purple or pink or black or white, which would more fully match this. But I'm going to continue to do it in gold because gold is what I have in there, and I want to see the comparison between doing the overlay and the applique and the reverse applique, sort of. And here is that piece. I had a tighter stitch here and opened it up more here. Again, double-sided fusible web would be a good idea. And I need to trim this off a little bit more. And when I got to this narrower part, I chose to not have my stitches overlap. If you want to do that, it's okay. It's not my preference. Sorry, I have to trim that because it is annoying to me that way. Okay. You have to put up with all my foibles, don't you? Sorry about that. Thank you for being patient. All right. Of these, I like this, but I think I like this more because, maybe because it's more unexpected, or I was going to say it has more dimension, but I don't know why it would have any more dimension than this. I guess I just like that effect of lacing it together. So maybe it's less kintsugi than a weaving kind of thing, or a, how do I want to say, lacing kind of thing. So interesting. I like having it where it can become a chip And this I might have made even a little narrower. I don't know, might have been harder to do with this double row of zigzag. And on this smaller piece, it could have been smaller. Perhaps on the larger piece, the larger would have been better. All right, now the next thing, and I like having this very narrow space. I want to try it with, I might want to try white on the purple. I do actually like this quite a lot. I would have to do, of course, within this, but if I did just small pieces, like small blocks, then I could get away with doing narrower things. Might be interesting to see what this was like if I had purple on here, so it gets away from the gold of Kintsugi, but Kintsugi is just an inspiration for it. And so I rather like it. It's not from far away, it's, you can see this pretty well, but that not so much. So I might want to make that wider. And of course have probably some more in that one piece, another cut out or something. You can also, of course, do something where you're making multiple cuts because the cracks don't go in just a straight line. There are cracks coming out all over. So I might do just a couple more like this over here, just to add a little bit to this piece. Not that I think I'm probably ever going to do anything with it, but you never know. Just see how it looks when you put in some more fractures here. Could be even some more, but do I want to get that crazy? No. All right. So then the first thing I will do is put some purple under here, stitch that, and then I will put those together with much the same technique. All right. I really like having several on one piece. And I didn't get my stitch quite wide enough at the top here, so I trimmed that a bit. Could use a little more, but still looks okay for our purposes. And I think I would want to explore, sorry, my smashed fingernail again, want to explore how I want to do this better. Got a little rattling there. Would be better, of course, if I had the fusible on it, which I haven't bothered with today for exploring, but that would help that. But then also remembering to stop a little bit before the end. And I think I want to tie off that end. You can see the little frazzle there. This is rayon thread. So I think I would want to pull the top thread to the back and knot it there. So aside from the rattling that comes from not having the fusible, I think that looks good. I do like having this variety of width. I made this one a little bit wider than this one, but not really so you could tell. So I actually I think that better, though it's nice to have, you don't have to have 15 stars. You can have 1 star and some planets around it, I guess. I don't know. So I think there are many more possibilities we could do, but I think that's going to finish the exploration for today. I would love to hear in the comments other ideas that you have, which of these you liked, what you might do differently, other fabrics or colors that you might use. Just be interested to hear what you think about the Kintsugi inspired pieces. Next week is another one of those uncertain things. If you have any ideas, again, put them in the comment. I appreciate those. Sometimes I have to ponder them for quite a while before I do them, but I do appreciate all your suggestions. Until next week, when we will do whatever we're going to do, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out. Did forget to mention, not to be in advertising mode, and I'm not pushing, but I am having mugs made with peace out printed on them on 2 sides. This is my closing graphic that I use on all my videos. If you're interested, let me know in the comments and I can put some for sale in my Etsy shop. Peace.